What's going on YouTube? OCD Free DC here, and what I got for your face balls today is this sweet little knife. I'm sure most of you already know what this is, but for those that don't, this is the packaging that you will receive. I generally don't show boxes very much, but this one's kind of cool and just a little different, so I thought I'd show it. I got to start this off by saying this was generously loaned to me so I could take a look at it by one of my viewers. His name's David. He goes by DLBY3 on Instagram, and you guys should go give him a follow. He does a lot of pictures and stuff and got some pretty cool knives. So yeah, go give David a follow. Really cool guy, and was nice enough to let me, just some random dumbass on the internet, check out a bunch of his knives. So I really appreciate it. Anyway, what we're looking at here is made by Protech. It is a drop knife, so I'm sure that's all that needs to be said, and everyone knows what this is. However, let's get into it. So this is what you get here, and it's a pretty cool box. You got this magnetic closure, kind of a neat thing, and yeah, it's the presentation is pretty cool. So you get this little fuzzy nut sack that the knife comes in, which is always nice, and then of course comes in a bag, whatnot, and it says thanks and blah blah blah. So anyway, that's the packaging. So what do we got here? Nice little Protech branding on the nut sack, and here it is, guys. This is the Protech drop Mordax. So really cool knife. Definitely really dig this thing, and yeah, so I'm sure most people know all about this thing already. It is a button lock with beautiful action. It is rocking aluminum scales, 20 CV CPM 20 CV blade steel, and this is a Ferum Forge design. You can see their logo right there. And this is produced by Protech for drop and designed by Ferum Forge. So really cool knife. The blue color on this thing is spectacular. That's one of my favorite parts about this knife, is this blue. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's one of the best colors out there for sure. And of course this thing is like a guillotine. The noises that it makes are pretty spectacular as well. So let me get this closer to the mic. Yeah, pretty cool. So it's got a authoritative thwack when it opens, and kind of a little bit of a high frequency resonance from the aluminum. Little tink, and yeah, pretty cool design for sure. So we got Protech quality here, so we'll get into that in a moment. So first off, we'll do a few size comparisons here. We'll do the standards. Here it is against the Spyderco Manix 2 and the Spyderco Para 3 lightweight. So you can see here we're not pretty decent sized knife here. And then here it is against the Benchmade Super Freak and the Benchmade Bug Out. So there you go. So fairly decent sized knife, and yeah. So a while ago I posted a video that I titled The Mordax and called it a poor man's Mordax, and I did that with this knife right here. This is the Real Steel Griffin, and it is also aluminum scale, not nearly as beautiful in color. And you can see here that dimensionally we are talking about almost the exact same knife. So we're going to come back to this guy in a few moments. We're going to set him right up here, and we're going to talk about this guy. So overall length, we've got 8.215 inches. You've got a handle length here of 4.63 and a blade length of just over 3.5. It's 3.585. So, if you do have those sorts of laws, it is it is over 3.5 inches, however, just barely. So, handle thickness is under a 1/2 inch. You're looking at 0.46 inches, and your blade stock here is 1/8 of an inch at 0.125. And handle height, so from this area here you got about 7/8, and then it's pretty much around an inch all through here. And blade height, you got 1.16 inches in its tallest right back here. So we are looking at a flat ground blade of CPM 20 CV, and the 1/8 inch blade stock is nicely done. However, you can see that there's not a whole lot of distal taper going on here. You know, it pretty well maintains all of its stock thickness to right about here, and then you have just a you know, small taper down to the point. So this thing is a pretty robust blade all the way across. It's a little bit pry barish. Even though it's only 1/8 inch blade stock, it carries it all the way out to here. What that does for behind the edge thickness is not stellar. This thing is coming in at 27 thousandths behind the edge right here at the heel of the blade, which is its thinnest point. And then it consistently gets thicker and thicker to right up here at the tip is 32 thousandths. So, you know, not a crazy amazing slicer, but it's crazy amazing action, that's for sure. So, you know, this thing's basically a fidget toy, and I'm sure anyone that has one of these spends tons of time just flipping it, because it's certainly pretty cool. And, you know, I honestly like it better left-handed than I do right-handed, even though it is right side tip up carry only. And the reason I say that is because you can push the button with your index finger instead of your thumb, which yeah, it's just nice and comfortable, and it works well, and yeah, it's cool for sure. Flipping action is exactly what you would expect. The D10 is really well dialed and flips reliably every single time. The flipper tab does protrude quite a bit. You do have ever so slight, there's 2 jimps on the end of the flipper tab. God, my camera is just not making it happen here. So, you know, I mean, the flipper tab works. Functionally, it's great. But it is it does stick out there quite a bit. Pocket clip on this guy's fantastic. That's one of the highlights of this knife. This pocket clip is great. It is a fold over deep carry clip. However, with the way they mounted it, you do have, you know, this sticking out of your pocket. But in true Protech fashion, they recessed the pocket clip into the scale, as well as used panhead screw or tapered screws, and so they are flush in there, which is just beautiful. The Protech always does really stellar work with the pocket clips, which I thoroughly enjoy. And then you do have a little lanyard point right back here at the back of the knife, so that's nicely done. You know, it basically, if you don't want a lanyard, you really don't even know it's there, and if you want a lanyard, it's there. So that's great. It doesn't disrupt the beauty of the profile on this knife. And because it's pretty thin this way, and not horribly tall in this dimension in the pocket, so if you compare this to something like the Mordax 2, you can see, I don't want to scratch this guy, so I'm going to hold it off, but you can see the backside of the knife here. I mean, the Mordax 2, for being roughly, I think they're about the same in overall length. Yeah, you know, actually the Mordax is a little bit bigger. You know, the Mordax takes up a lot less space in the pocket, so pretty cool. It's well packaged and just well designed, and yeah, it's definitely a cool knife. The only thing that I would rather see on this guy is you know, I would want to see a better grind on this blade, just being more aggressive. I think this thing would be amazing with a beautiful hollow grind, and get this thing down around 10 thousandths behind the edge would just be fantastic, but that's not what they chose to do. So now one of the things with that distal taper, that, lends itself to giving this thing really good action, because you have quite a bit of weight out there at the tip of the blade. And so that, helps quite a bit with letting that blade swing around so easily. However, I would have rather them gotten more aggressive on the blade grind, and even if the blade didn't have this snappy of action, which I still think that it would have, even if it was lighter weight, it would have been nice if this would have been ground better. So let's take a look here. Speaking of weight, so we got a little over 3.5 inch blade, aluminum scales, and we're 3.776 ounces. So yeah, nice weight. This thing feels really nice in the hand. It's really, you can just tell it's a quality piece, and of course the action is just spectacular. So compared to the Griffin, of course this is 20 CV blade steel, and this is 14C28N. So, these are not in the same category. However, the Griffin, I keep hitting the table here, trying to do this under a camera, but the Griffin is just a great knife. Action is also not quite as good as the Mordax, but definitely really good. Now, the Griffin is riding on needle bearings instead of round ball bearings, and the Griffin's just a great knife, especially for the money. Right now, at the time of shooting this video, these things are right around 50 bucks, $50, $55, depending on where you buy them from. And they do offer a high-end version of the Griffin, which is in titanium and has some little carbon fiber inlays on it, and it is in M390. And that particular model is, I think, right around 200 bucks. So anyway, the real steel Griffin, if you're looking for a cheap, really good action button lock, this is your guy. Back to the Mordax. So when I made that video on the Griffin and calling it the Pordax, or the poor man's Mordax, the Mordax had just recently come out. It was available, and there was a lot of hype around it, and everybody was loving it, and they were $250. And in my opinion, Protech's one of these weird companies that I really like several of their knives, and just the fact that they're all aluminum scales, or the vast majority, I think all of them are. I might be a little bit wrong on that, but most of them are, we'll say that. And I don't have anything against aluminum scales. It's just, it's not titanium, and so it shouldn't be priced the same as titanium, in my opinion. It's much easier to machine. It's obviously significantly cheaper to purchase, and and just from what I know about being in manufacturing, the machining process and all the tools required, and I mean everything from the milling bits, all of it is cheaper and easier to do with aluminum. So from that standpoint, I feel like aluminum knives should not carry the same sort of value or price that titanium knives do on a production sense. I'm not talking about customs. So this guy, yes, it's 20 CV blade steel. Yes, it's a Ferum Forge design, and you do with that what you will. Some people are going to see that as a positive. Others might see it as a negative. I personally really like the design. It's super comfortable in hand. The ergos are great. I would have liked to have seen this forward choil be just ever so slightly larger, but again, that's just because I have big ass paws on me. But otherwise, I really like the knife. The pocket clip is spectacular, really well done, which I wouldn't expect anything else from Protech. And for 250 bucks, I just kind of have a hard time wrapping my head around this knife. I would love it and like it a lot more, I guess, at like 175 or something like that. And then I feel like it's just easier for me to get there. And so, with that being said, right now on drop, they actually lowered the price on this guy from the standard 250 down to 180. So right now, if you go on drop, and I am filming this at in the fall of 2019, and if you go on drop, they have recently dropped the price of this guy down to 180. So 180, that's I can deal with that. And I can't remember what the upcharges are. They have a few different scale options. You can get some different milling in the scale, and then of course there's multiple different color options. But to me, this blue is the only one because the blue is just spectacular. You know, the color on this thing is great. But I really like this sterile version here. Like I said, there are these other options that have a bunch of lines and holes and other stuff milled into the scales. I really like the clean, sterile look of this one. So I think if I were going to purchase one of these knives, it would be this exact model right here. This is my favorite one, and it also ends up being one of the cheaper ones, just because the milling jacks the price a little bit. So, overall conclusions on this knife, I really dig the design. I think it's a great looking knife. Love the color, love the pocket clip. I love everything about this knife except for the grind. Uh, yeah, it just, man, having a pocket knife, you know, if I want a pry bar, I'll get a pry bar. And if I want a crazy, you know, prying style knife, I'll get a knife like that. There's certainly a million options out there where, you know, the knives are meant for crazy hard use. This particular knife is not one that I would want to beat up and scratch up and whatever. It's just too damn pretty for that. And the blue is something that I really like and enjoy, and to me it's a pretty classy looking knife, although it is a little bit on the large size for being called a, you know, gentleman's carry knife. It fits for me because I have big ass hands, so this you know, I would have no problems carrying this in a more gentlemanly setting. However, the blade stock thickness is like, yeah, it's huge. You know, it's not what I would have wanted or expected from this knife. So because Protech voids warranty, we're not going to tear this knife apart. I know that's something I generally do on my channel, but this one, if it was mine, I would tear it apart, but I don't want to do anything that would void David's warranty. So I am not going to disassemble this knife. However, one of the things that also is slightly disappointing, and I don't know if you guys can see it or not here, but the blade centering on this guy is less than stellar. So you can see here, maybe if I can get the lighting to work here. So it's favoring this side here. It's not touching the scale, but it's damn close. Let me see. Yeah. So yeah, it's hard for me to get it to really show, but I don't know if you can tell the spacing between the blade and the pocket clip side here is more, and it is very, very close to this side. Now, I do think that you could fix that, but again, like I said, it's not my knife, so I'm not going to disassemble it. Action is perfect, and there is just ever so slightly a hint of a wiggle there. Nothing up and down. But yeah, I would say, you know, the quality of this thing is pretty good. Like I said, I'm confident I could fix the blade centering on this thing, but again, it's not mine, so I'm not going to put tools on it. So it's yeah, you know, my overall conclusions on this guy is, if you love the design and you love everything about this knife and you're willing to overlook the blade grind, then I think it's a great knife. I think you'll love it, and it's great in the pocket. Certainly functionally, the pocket clip is spectacular. But, you know, if you're expecting this thing to be a really great slicer, it's just not that. And it's kind of sad because I feel like this could have been something more than it is. You know, if they would have ground this blade really thin, the hype would still be very real with this knife. You know, the button lock is fun. I like seeing button locks. especially well done ones, and this one is definitely well done. So, you know, there's some good and some bad here, but the price came down, which is nice. I feel like had they done a better job grinding that blade, they wouldn't have to lower the price. People would be paying the 250. So, you know, maybe it's a lesson learned. I don't know. They were so close, and it's a great knife in so many ways, and it is. And you know, I don't want to just sit here and bag on it. That's not what I'm here to do. Uh, but I got to keep it real with you guys. And you know, just for comparison on this Griffin, the I don't know what this thing measures behind the edge, but we'll measure it real quick. It's going to be less than the 25 thousandths or 27 that, yeah. So 19 thousandths back here at the back. Let me get it back here. Ooh. So yeah, 19 and a half. And then this one you can see has got more distal taper, so it doesn't become like a pry bar out on the end. It still stays pretty thin out here. So let's get a measurement out here. So yeah, we're still 19 and a half. So, you know, this thing, the Griffin, is just a better, you know, it's a flat ground blade, full flat ground. So you can see, you know, the grind goes all the way to the spine of the blade, and it does have distal taper, which certainly makes the blade lighter, and you can tell that when you're flipping this knife. You know, it doesn't close with the same sort of authority that this Protech does, or Mass Drop, or Ferum, or whatever, the Mordax. But you know, when it comes to slicing, the Griffin's just going to do a better job. Now, granted, it's not 20 CV, and I know that, and you know, I'm just going off of blade geometry here, and blade geometry will always trump blade steel as far as how well it's going to cut something. The composition of the blade steel will tell you, well, composition and heat treat will tell you how long it's going to cut something, but geometry is going to tell you how well it cuts something. And just based on geometry, the Griffin is going to outperform the Mordax. So anyway, I hate to do negative videos, but I really wanted to talk about this knife. It's a great knife in a lot of ways, and it just has kind of that one big glaring fat ass elephant edge in the room, you know. So anyway, guys, thanks a lot for checking this video out. Go give David a follow on Instagram, DLBY3, and thanks so much, David, for letting me check out some of your knives. And check out the links below. I've got a bunch of affiliate links down there if you guys want to pick up some sweet gear. There's a whole bunch of links down there, and you can help support my channel in the process, which I infinitely appreciate. So thanks so much, guys. Have a good one, and we will see you next time.